This is the agenda for tonight's session to help candidates develop their campaign plan and their strategy. We'll talk first about the support that the state Democratic Party is offering to Democratic candidates this year. Talk about why you need a campaign plan. Share the information that you want to look for or include in the strategic overview section of your campaign plan, and then we'll wrap up with some next steps. So we are very pleased, very proud and excited to be providing a lot of support to candidates running for municipal office this year. These are the primary goals for this session in the training series. It's about helping Democrats who are running for municipal office so that they can win in 2025 by sharing information, tools, and resources. I want to pause here. I wanted to highlight municipal office in 2025. If you are here because you're running in 2026, maybe you're just researching it, maybe you're running for a different type of office, please stay. Just know that as I'm talking about this information, I will be gearing it towards this year's election and municipal offices, but the principles are applicable no matter what office you're running for. The other goal we have as a state party is to build the bench so that we have long-term success in North Carolina. We know that we've got a long-term goal of flipping the North Carolina General Assembly to Democratic control. To get good Democrats elected to those seats in the General Assembly, we need to build a bench and have people who are experienced campaigning and governing before those races come up. We've been talking a lot this year about municipal races, and we're really excited to provide this support because, in particular, we know with these municipal races, school board, city council, town council, mayor, you can have a tremendous impact in your communities. The news ecosystem is all talking about the chaos that the MAGA Republicans are brewing up in Washington, and that is important. And one of the single best things you can do to build a stronger community is to work in your own backyard. So we really appreciate that you're running for office and that you're here with us this evening. I mentioned that I have run for office myself, and I found it to be intense, exhausting, and rewarding. Your mind might be spinning, particularly if you got into the race kind of at the last minute, you just filed your papers. There is a lot coming at you all at once. That's what campaigns are like. And as intense and hectic as it is today, it will get even more intense and hectic. I can tell you from experience that you will also build your stamina for this work as you go along. So you're going to put it all out on the table come November. When's election day? 4th for most of you. After election day, you will be tired, and it will be worth it. I didn't win my race, and I still would not change the fact that I ran. It was an incredibly rewarding experience. I made fantastic connections in my community. I met new people who have turned out to be really steadfast friends. So enjoy this experience and embrace everything that's coming at you, and we're here to help. So the state party is investing a lot of time and energy this year, partnering with the county parties to provide a whole bunch of resources and support for candidates. So if you are a Democrat and you are running for municipal office in 2025, this is the absolute right place to be. The first resource I want to tell you about, if you haven't already, please sign up for Vote Builder. Chris will drop the link in the chat. I will also include all these links when I send the follow-up email. Vote Builder is the database of all of the registered voters in your districts. Normally, when I ran for office, 10,000 voters in my race, it cost me $900 to buy Vote Builder. I was in a different state. Here in North Carolina, we're really happy to offer Vote Builder for free to municipal candidates. So it is, in addition to being something you don't have to spend money on, it's also going to improve your effectiveness in reaching out to voters. So we'll provide scripts for you to use in Vote Builder so that when you call and knock on doors to talk to voters, you have starter scripts. And we will also help you create some of those lists of voters who you want to talk to and provide technical support via office hours. In addition, there is a six-part training series on Vote Builder. So I'm like halfway through this series. One time this year, I will be doing another round of this training. I would start with Vote Builder 101. And if you don't want to wait until that August 5th date, these videos are also available on YouTube, and I'll share that link tomorrow. The video recordings tend to be about half an hour. Candidates have a lot on their plates. You have a lot of things to do. I will not be insulted if you want to watch it on YouTube at 2x speed so you can get through it faster. But there's good information in here on what you should be using Vote Builder for, and then getting specific on how to make calls and knock doors to potential voters in your district. We're collaborating with the county parties, and I encourage you, if you don't yet have a relationship with your county party, reach out, start building that relationship. The state party is collaborating with the county parties to really develop robust voter contact programs. We're training people how to be a canvas captain. That's how to host and launch a door knocking event. We're providing literature to the county parties, recruiting poll greeters. And we also have a statewide voter protection program. And a training will be coming for candidates on voter protection in another 6 weeks or so. I'll tell you more about that later. The candidate training series, this is the first part. These 6 sessions are kind of the foundation of the candidate training series. There are some additional trainings coming that support these topics. These are the 6 that I think cover you soup to nuts in a campaign. In addition, on July 30th, we're having a kickoff rally on Zoom with the state party officers, county party leaders, people who have run for office who can talk about their experiences. So please join us for that as well. And then the last resource for candidates that I want to share right now, another link to drop in the chat, please, Chris. We have candidate office hours. So every Monday at 1 o'clock, staff members across the main teams, training, data, organizing, communications, digital and social, fundraising, we're hanging out in a Zoom so that candidates can come ask us questions. We will connect you with resources. We can refer you to resources outside of the party, help connect you with the counties. It's also an opportunity for you to perhaps meet and network with other candidates and campaign managers. Okay, those are resources that we are sharing with candidates. And I'm going to talk next about why it's important to have a campaign plan. Before I do, I have not been able to keep up with the chat. Sarah, has anything come up in the chat that we should talk about?
We have a lot of candidates from across the state dropping in their information and the office they're running for, which is really exciting. Philip just asked, do we send out invitations for office hours? Nope, no invitation necessary. Just join us. There's a link there, and it's at ncdp.org/candidate office hours, and you can just come on in. There is a registration screen for the Zoom, and then you will be in the room with all of the staff. So if you have individual questions, this is a good time to come. And that's, I think, the only question I've seen that hasn't been answered.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's keep moving. Thank you, Sarah. And let's talk about why it's important to have a campaign plan. So I like to use my little expressions here to share information. A goal without a plan is just a wish. So you are probably having a lot hit you all at once as a candidate. It can be a bit messy. And what we want to get you to is having a roadmap to victory to help you get there. So taking all the information that's in your head floating around, getting it out of your head onto paper into a document. I'm going to share some best practices for these plans, but I really want to stress this. I can get a little scattered if I am not following my plan and I tend to have scraps of paper with notes on them. That's not what we're going to do here for our campaign plan. So we want to get out of our heads in whatever format works for you, whether it's a memo, like a Word document, whether it's slides, Google Slides, a spreadsheet, whatever tool works best for you normally. I want you to use that and document your plan in advance. Couple of benefits of having that strategy and plan documented. First, it's going to show people that you are a legitimate candidate, that you are being thoughtful, you are prepared, and you are organized. So when it comes time for endorsements or maybe significant donors, when you're perhaps looking to bring someone on as campaign staff or consultant, if your race is large enough to warrant that, having a documented strategy and plan shows that you are a credible candidate. It's also going to help you prioritize. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. This is called the Eisenhower Matrix. And Chris, if you would drop that link in the chat. This is a template to help you prioritize your time. What is urgent? What is important? What should you delegate? What should you completely ignore? And that bucket of what is not urgent and not important, so you should ignore it, is a really important bucket. Having your strategy, having your plan documented will help you make these kinds of prioritization decisions. And then the third reason is around delegating. Campaigns are a really big project and the work is infinite. You're going to need help. You're going to want help. And the first step in effectively delegating is having a task you can explain and hand off to somebody. So having a strategy, having a plan will help you delegate that work. When you're on a campaign, there are two really finite resources working against you at all time and money. Those are the resources that you need to balance as you're going through your campaign. So a plan will help you manage those finite resources. It helps make sure that everything you're doing is tying back to your goal and improving your chances of winning. So if somebody suggests an event or a tactic or something you should buy, you can look back at your strategic plan and say, does it fit with that plan? Should I do it? Or is it a distraction? And I'm going to say no. A good strategic plan will be flexible and you will be updating it. This shouldn't be a document you do once, put in a drawer, and never look at it again. It should be updated as your race, as circumstances changes. So when you see that you're falling behind on your fundraising goal, perhaps it means a tactic needs to be cut, or it means you need to devote more time to fundraising. If your fundraising is running ahead of schedule, then you can make a strategic decision. Do I spend less time fundraising or do I spend money on additional things we hadn't planned for? Things like that. And it will hold you and your team to your goals. So, Sarah and I were talking earlier, and she said one of the benefits she found with a plan like this is that when it gets to the last week of October, when it is that first week of November, and you are dog tired, um, it's a little harder to think clearly, but having this plan documented that you can go back to and see when I started this race and I was less tired, this is what I plan to do this week. I'm going to jump in and do it because I trust my past self. This is about planning your work and then working your plan. And the more time you can spend upfront developing a good, strong plan, it should pay dividends down the road. In that plan, here are a couple of the key questions that you should constantly be asking yourself. If you're the campaign manager, ask the candidate. If you are a county party leader, ask candidates when they come to meet with you and ask for your support or endorsement. These key questions are relevant for the entire campaign plan. What needs to be done? who's going to do it, when will they do it, and how much will it cost? And you're always balancing these four elements. Okay, talked about why you need a campaign plan. Now I'm going to start talking about how you would develop your strategy. The chat is not as busy as it was. Um, so if you have questions, type them in that chat. Otherwise, let's talk about building your strategic plan. And I know that this graphic is a little hard to see. This is the table of contents from my strategic plan for my campaign. And when I was building out this training, I was like, this plan that I built 3 years ago, it has the right categories of information. So your campaign plan is going to include a strategic overview, fundraising and budget information, communications, field organizing, and get out the vote or GOTV. And if you notice, the training schedule that we have planned is going to hit all of these topics as we go along. For today, for today, we're focusing on the strategic overview. And in this category of information, I'm also going to talk a little bit about your team and the calendar. For your strategic overview, it's going to include key facts and context. So you're going to need to do a little bit of research, and I'm going to give you resources for that. Researching the district, the race, the candidates, and describe your approach to the race, how you're going to win at a high level, your high level strategy, and your win number. Win number, we've got some jargon here. I'm going to get back to that in just a minute. So, researching the district, you want to know everything you can about the voters in your district and the residents. Those numbers are probably different, right? Not everybody's registered to vote. But the demographic information is going to be what is the party affiliation? The percentage of Democrats versus Republicans versus independents or no party preference. Age, race, gender, religion, income, homeowners versus renters. What are the key professions? Whatever information you can get about the members of your community, and research also the key population centers or neighborhoods in your district. You can probably ask the Board of Elections for a district map, or you could look at your County Board of Elections website. You might be able to find one there. But you want to know what are the boundaries of this district and where are the main population centers. Also, look at previous elections. What percentage of registered voters voted in the last few elections? The percentage and the number of registered voters. Usually, what you're going to find in 2025, it's going to be a lot lower voter turnout than it was in 2024. 24 was a presidential year. That's the biggest possible voter turnout we usually see. If in your community in 2024, the voter turnout, 70% of voters turned out to vote, in 2025, it's probably going to be 20 to 30%. Sarah, what do you think? Am I aiming too high?
Could be. Depends on how many races and how competitive they are. But yeah, turnout is usually quite a bit lower in these elections. So it's good to check the numbers. It might surprise you.
Yeah, it's going to be half or less than it was in 2024. And I'm assuming here that you're running in a municipal race that happens every 4 years. So look every 4 years, maybe for the past few elections for that race, get a sense of are there trends? Is the If the percent of voter turnout is the same, but the numbers are going higher, that's telling me your community is growing. If the percentage of Democrats versus Republicans might be changing. My community is getting more Democrats year after year. What are the trends in that voter turnout? And how is it going to influence the assumptions you make about 2025? One reason you want to know that number of registered voters and what that turnout is because you're probably going to do direct mail. You might send mail to people's homes, and you need to know how many of those you need to make to work it into your budget. We'll talk more about that in a future session. Next thing to research, and Chris, I got a couple links for you on this slide and the next. The North Carolina State Board of Elections, Chris just dropped this link where you can go look at this spreadsheet. This is what it'll look like and see everyone who's running for the seat you're running for in 2025. So, how many candidates are there? Who are they? What is their party affiliation? That's going to tell you who your competitors are. Even if you think you know who it is, go look and make sure. What do you know about those candidates? You can also use this link here from the State Board of Elections to see historical election results. So, how many people ran the last time this seat was open? Who were they? What was their party affiliation? Who won? What was their win margin? So, how many votes or what percentage did they win by? What can you learn from those past elections to help inform you going forward? You want to research the candidates. One jargon term that you will hear is about viability. Are you a viable candidate? Meaning, do we think you have a chance to win? I'm going to say, sitting here in North Carolina, some of you are running and you're probably not expecting to win. And those races are so incredibly important to the health of democracy in North Carolina. They help us build our bench going forward. In 2024, when Justice Riggs won her statewide race by 734 votes, that was because of years of work trying to get turnout, a lot of investment from us in red counties and purple counties to get more Democrats to turn out in those areas. So if you are running a race where the last time the Republican won by 20 or 30 points, we greatly appreciate the work you're doing. And the reason you play the game is because you never know what's going to happen. But you might be sitting here saying, my goal, maybe your goal isn't to win. Maybe you're going to plant a seed this year and run for something else next year, and this is part of getting your name out there. Maybe you and your county have a long-term strategy for building more Democratic power in your county. Um, so I just want to throw out here, maybe your goal is not a victory in this race. For most of you, it probably is. But people will want to know, are you viable? They're asking, do we think you can win? So when you are looking at your opponents, are they viable? Do they seem like they could win? Have any of the people running this time run before? What did they run for? How did they do? How much money did they raise? What kind of endorsements did they get? What do you know about them? For the race you're running, is there an incumbent? Are they a Democrat, a Republican? A lot of these municipal races I know are nonpartisan, but people are still registered Democrats or Republicans. So, what do you know about the incumbent? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? Who supports them and who opposes them? This is information to think about, to research, to include in your strategy. For your high level strategy, information to include here would be what core values are going to anchor your campaign. This isn't about policy positions, it's about your values. So, a commitment to community, uh, focus on the next generation, equity. Think about what values anchor you in this campaign. What approach is your campaign going to take to connect and build trust with voters? So, do you think there are pockets of the community who maybe don't usually turn out in a municipal election, but you have deep roots in that community and you can motivate those people to vote for you? Do you have deep roots in the community from service work you've done in the past, and you're going to use that to launch your campaign. How are you going to connect and build trust with voters? We've talked a lot about your finite resources, money and time. How are you going to use that to achieve your goal? Are you expecting to have a big pot of money, but not enough time? And so you need to hire a campaign manager to support you? Or do you think you're not going to be able to raise a lot of money? So you're really going to need to rely on friends and family and community members to volunteer for your campaign. At a high level, think of some of those trade-offs. And how are you going to differentiate yourself in your campaign from your opponent? What makes you different? Why should people vote for you instead of that person? Also, in this high level strategy part of your campaign plan, you'll want to figure out your vote goal. This also is called a win number. And I'm not going to go into this in a lot of depth, but usually your win number is like 50% of the expected voter turnout plus one. In most races, if you are head to head, you just need one more vote than your opponent. If it's a race that's got multiple people running, multiple Democrats, the dynamic gets a little bit more involved. And um, when you have this vote goal, when you have your win number, it's going to help influence how many people you need to contact, how many people you need to persuade to turn out, how many doors are you going to need to knock, how many phone calls and texts. Calculating your vote goal, your win number, that is its own training session because a lot of variables go into how you calculate that depending on the dynamics of your race. So if you want to know more about that, um, we've got a training session on that coming up. Thank you, Chris. The next part of your campaign plan is to think about the calendar. This is about working backwards from election day. I'm actually going to work backwards and forwards. And these arrows here mean this is something you are always doing. This is not a static part of your plan for sure, but always adapting and making sure you know what's coming up and what you need to be doing when. The first chunk of dates that you can focus on would be deadlines, things you don't control. You don't control election day. There are end of month and end of quarter fundraising deadlines. There are financial reporting deadlines. You don't control those. You need to know when those are. Other organizations might have endorsement programs and they might have endorsement deadlines. You can't change their deadlines. So think about getting your arms around those dates that are set, put them on your plan, and prioritize those. Other key dates to include on your calendar, have an awareness of holidays coming up, maybe school schedules, fall festivals. Diwali can be a big event in the fall. Like what's coming up in the community? Are there community events, football games? Are there community events you want to be at? And then work in your campaign events and fundraisers. One thing I recommend you kind of think about the rhythm of a week in your campaign. You've got about 3 months until November. Some of you might have primaries, some of you might not, but you got about 3 months tops. Um, don't think in terms of months. Think in terms of what are you doing this week? What are you doing next week? And I encourage you to spend as much time in your communities and talking to voters as you can. One way I prioritize my time is I had a rule I did not phone bank during key door knocking times. So if I had phone calls I needed to make, I did not make those from 5 to 8 on weekday evenings because I knew I needed to be out knocking doors and talking to voters. If you have a job, what are the pockets of time you can work around for that job? But think about the cadence of what your week could look like. We'll talk about this concept in the training session on field organizing. But we think of elections in these four phases: capacity building, persuasion, get out the vote, and final four. Capacity building is probably what you're focused on right now. You need to raise money, you need to build your team, maybe get some volunteers. Persuasion is when you're starting to knock doors and talk to voters, tell them that you're running, tell them that the election's coming up. Not everybody even knows that there's an election this year. And telling them why you are the best person to be elected for that role. You're identifying your supporters so that when you get to GOTV, get out the vote, this is when people can start voting. And then you want to make sure the people who support you actually get to the polls and cast their ballot. And then the final 4 days, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, with Tuesday being your election day, are quite possibly the four busiest days of your life. This is really a hectic period and it is exhilarating. So you really want to know what your plan is when you get to that final stretch and you're just pushing to talk to as many voters as possible. The last part I want to talk about here for your strategic overview in your campaign plan is thinking about your campaign's operations and particularly your team. Who is going to help you with your campaign? Will you have a kitchen cabinet? A kitchen cabinet is a group of unpaid advisors who support you, who meet with you regularly, who provide some coaching, some guidance, some feedback. Hopefully, it's people who are politically savvy. Maybe they have helped other candidates run for office. And you're probably going to meet with them on a regular basis. Hopefully, they take some assignments, things like helping you research endorsements or helping introduce you to key members of the community, key people who are going to influence the fate of your election. Work with your county party. So we have been sharing a lot of resources with you. We're sharing resources with the county parties. Hopefully, you have a relationship with your county party. If not, this is the time to reach out, attend events, get connected, ask for advice. Depending on the size of your race and your budget, you might have a campaign manager or a campaign consultant, maybe part-time. Um, the campaign manager or campaign consultant is someone who can help take on some of the work. When you are running for office, the absolute scarcest resource is the candidate's time. And there are some tasks only the candidate can do. Some meetings, some conversations, endorsement interviews that only the candidate can do, but you can use a campaign manager or other volunteers who are helping you work on some of those other tasks. You also are going to need a campaign treasurer. Next week's training is going to talk about fundraising and managing your budget. You need to have your treasurer, and they have some mandatory training that they need to attend with the State Board of Elections. If you don't have a treasurer yet, or you're not feeling great about your treasurer, this is something you could potentially ask your county party if they have recommendations. Now is the time in these early days to be building your coalition. So reach out to current elected officials, introduce yourself, tell them why you're running, ask for their support. There might be faith leaders or other community leaders, even if they're not in the district who could vote for you, they may still have a lot of influence in your community, and it would be good to build relationships with them. And when I'm talking about building your coalition, uh, think about who is going to support you, who might be a detractor, and who could be neutral. Um, an example from my campaign is that an organization reached out to me for an endorsement interview process, and my values did not align with the organization's values. So I sent them a very polite email and I said, thank you for including me. I'm not going to fill out your endorsement questionnaire because I believe X, Y, and Z, and that's against your platform, but thank you for the opportunity. They reached back out and said, well, you don't have to fill out the questionnaire, but we appreciate that you even bothered to respond and tell us no, thank you. Let's at least get to know each other. Let's do the interview. So I did the interview with this organization, and it turned out someone who I knew quite well was one of the panelists. And she told me afterwards that the panel was so pleased that I had bothered to respond to them, that I had been professional, and that I had clearly articulated why I didn't want their endorsement. We had a very um, mutually respectful conversation when I did my interview. They didn't endorse me. I didn't want their endorsement. It actually would have been detrimental to my campaign. But the person they did endorse, they didn't actually campaign for them. And I kind of neutralized that organization. They didn't end up putting time and money behind my opponent because they had respect and appreciation for where I was coming from. So just keep in mind that there are supporters, detractors, and people who you could potentially neutralize. And sometimes just neutralizing a potential detractor is a win. Okay. Sarah, anything going on in the chat?
A couple of questions. Let's see. There was a question about treasurer training that I think is important for everybody to hear. Um, and the question was, who mandates training and how do you find that out?
That is the State Board of Elections. And I don't have the link at my fingertips for that training, but I will make a note and include it tomorrow. Or you can go to the State Board of Elections website and look for the treasurer training. They facilitate and run that.
That's right. And Claire Kepner put it in the chat as well. So thank you, Claire, for being on top of that. Um, and that was part of a conversation about fundraising. The question was, when should I start fundraising?
Yesterday, um, so I mean that's only like 20% a joke. Um, but start right away when you have your committee. I we'll talk about fundraising in more detail next week. And I used Act Blue as my fundraising platform when I ran for office. I found it to be effective. It helped me with my reporting. It was professional. People knew to look there. And you should be able to get a burst of fundraising energy right off the bat. Hopefully, I would be thinking about who is who are your closest friends, who's your family, who are your neighbors, who's most excited about you running, ask them for money. I posted that I was running for office on LinkedIn, and somebody I hadn't talked to in like 20 years, but I was close with in college, chipped in like 200 bucks. You just don't know. So put it out there. One rule of thumb I've heard is when you ask somebody to donate, first of all, you should be asking them to donate a certain dollar amount. And that dollar amount should be how much would they spend to take you out to dinner for your birthday? Is it your rich aunt who's going to take you to a fancy dinner and she's going to spend, 200, 300 bucks? Is it your, buddy from the softball league and he's going to buy you a round of beers? Think about how much somebody's going to spend on your birthday and ask them for that amount. But get started. You want to get that out of the way so that when it gets closer to election day, you're talking to voters, not donors.
A related point that somebody made is to remember to file with your with the Board of Elections. Make sure your campaign committee is set up and in compliance. So when you fundraise, as soon as you start taking in money, you've had your first campaign activity, and you need a committee within 10 days of doing that. So make sure you are reading the Board of Elections website and in compliance, and then go to the treasurer training and reporting all of your activities appropriately. You touched on another question, which was should candidates in small municipal races be using Act Blue for
Hmm.
fundraising?
I say yes. So Act Blue usually charges, my race was a couple years ago, but I think it was like 1% of the donations or something. So it scales based on the size of your race. You will find most campaign related tools size scale their pricing based on the size of their race because they know how much the Democratic candidate for Senate can spend on something is different than what you can spend for your school board race. Act Blue I found to be priced competitively with the other potential political fundraising tools. What I don't recommend is don't just like send out your Venmo. I've seen that on occasion, and I had a job when I was screening candidates for endorsements, and that was like that showed me someone wasn't really credible. They weren't running a professional campaign. They maybe didn't quite know what they were up against. So don't do that. I recommend Act Blue. There are some competitors to Act Blue, but the cost, um, I don't think it's cost prohibitive, even if it's a small race.
And to the point about Venmo, Act Blue will help you make sure you collect all the information you need to be in compliance with your campaign finance reporting. If you use services like Venmo or PayPal, you may not get that information, and either your reports will be missing that or you'll have to spend time chasing that down. So it's easiest and most efficient to use some software set up for that.
Yeah, and Claire corrected me in the chat, 3.97% for Act Blue. Um, so it was not a significant expense for my campaign.
I think that's it for questions.
Okay, well, let me wrap up the slides. Then we have time for some more questions. Um, I just want to flash this again. So today we talked about strategy. When I send out the follow-up email, I'm going to include a really pared down template document you can use to start documenting your strategy. Next week, we'll talk about fundraising and we'll get to all these topics here. We've been pretty thoughtful about the sequencing of this training. You've got a week between each session, so you can do your research this week and come next week and learn more about fundraising. Your next steps. You signed up for training, so thank you for being here. Request Vote Builder if you don't have that yet. Start that campaign plan. And one more resource for you here. We have a Discord channel. I just made it. No one's in there yet but me. But if you're running for office, go to that link. And if somebody wants to test it right now, make sure it worked. Um, you can join this Discord, and I will be very, very, very lightly monitoring it, really just making sure people are a Democrat before they join. But that will be an opportunity for you to talk amongst yourselves, network, commiserate, collaborate, share best practices, and build community with other people who are also running. And then one more plug here for our candidate office hours Monday. Ooh, I heard the Discord bing. Okay, I see people. You're joining. Um, Candidate office hours. So Mondays at 1 o'clock, we are sitting in a Zoom room waiting for you to come ask us questions. As you can imagine, it's we don't really have the opportunity to do a lot of one-on-one support. There are, what, 800 Democrats running for office this fall. So office hours is your best opportunity to get access to staff, pick our brains a little bit. We don't put our thumb on the scale. We pick no candidate if you're in a primary. Anybody comes and asks for help, we will give you that help. So please join us in that. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording.